Hello, everybody. My name's Will, or Willy Dog, as y'all may know me for. And this is something that I always wanted to do since forever, especially when it comes to my future games. But I figured I'd go ahead and say screw it, and might as well go ahead and finally do developer commentaries on my games. So you can already see the thumbnail and the title. This is dev commentary on the old Five Nights at Billy's games, or this one is mostly for the second version of the original Five Nights at Billy's. Obviously not the reboot because that has yet to be made yet. Because I'm gonna be start making it after I'm done with other projects like The Lost Odyssey and Disney. But I figured that a developer commentary would be nice and kind of fun to do, especially giving out some like the now outdated lore and how some ideas came to be, especially just for this silly little Fnatic clone. Because it started off just as a Fnatic clone, but just with my characters and story and all that. But I'll go ahead and say that I will make sure that the new one that I'm gonna start making is gonna be a lot more than that because looking back, the old games that I made, they could have been better. Obviously, Billy's too. Anyways, yeah, might as well go ahead and get started on the basis on the game. The overall story is usually just you being here just because of an incident that happened. Original, I know. But again, I was 14 or well, technically 13 to 14 when I started this series. So you can't really blame me for that. Because somebody broke in and all of a sudden they got killed by something that is hiding in the building that you're working in. And then I'll go and say this right now, especially for people that are new. The characters, like literally everybody, like Billy, Bella, and Norm, they are not animatronics. Shocker, I know. They are in fact actual anthropomorphic animals. Not really furries, but just regular talking animals that are just human-like or some shit. I don't know. When I said that this game was a Fnatic clone, I meant it. Because this game was a remix of a recreation of Five Nights at Treasure Island that was made on Scratch years ago. It's most likely gone by now because of Scratch's newer policies that are honestly crap and not wanting FNAF games on their website anymore. But honestly, that's fine because my newer games, I have a lot more creative control on them, especially with the Lost Ones, on how gory it is and how messed up the characters are, and especially the jump scares. Because I can't do that on Scratch anymore. Because I'd probably get my ass kicked just like how I did back in 2018 with a similar situation that happened involving games like this. But honestly, it's fine, especially with my older games, how I've been remastering them, technically. I was just giving them like a bit of a makeover. Nothing too special, just fixing up mostly the graphics and shit. Now, I will say that I have done a little bit of coding, just a little, but not too much though. But I can say that I have learned a little bit of it over the years. I'm still not great at it, but I know for sure that I can do better. Especially if I fully decide to fully remake this game as a recode, which is a possibility. But of course I'll have to learn that first. Um, Now the mechanics, I wish I could have done a lot more on that. I mean, I was gonna add in more in the third version of this game before I canned it back in 2020, along with Billy's 4. That game was also canceled around that time. Or wait, no, it wasn't 2020. It was 2021. Yeah, I remember now because that's when I canceled those two games, and the second remaster to or the Billy's 2 remaster that was planned. before I started deciding, hey, why not just fully reboot this series? Because, like I said from before, my opinions on the story and how I did a lot of things have changed, and I really wish I could have done better. But as a usual creator, especially with a full cast of original characters, they still have a special place in me. Especially Billy, because Billy's my oldest character, like out of everybody. Because I'll go ahead, because I don't think anyone has known this aside from a few people that I told online. But Billy's origin is actually kind of an interesting one. So when I was a kid back in 2012, there was something called Cuddle-Uppets. I know what you're thinking. What the fuck is a Cuddle-Up? It was a puppet but fused with a blanket. And I thought, oh, that looks cool. And then I got one for Christmas, and then I decided to name him Billy and give him a full personality and stuff. And I'll go ahead and say, back when I was a kid, I was attached to him. Especially how I created this character. Especially making up lore for myself and him. And later on down the path, like in my teen years, that's when I started deciding to actually put him in a game. Mostly because I was actually introduced to Scratch in August of 2017 in 7th grade. And my first and second set of games were just bad. They were bad. All of them were bad. But I didn't give up there. Because that's when in 2018, that's when I fully decided to actually do a Five Nights at Billy's, which was the first version. Obviously didn't age very well. Hence why I started working on this version, which is the video you're watching right now. Nothing... Version 1 and version 2 don't really have too much differences besides, the graphics, obviously, and the lore that I gave, because, V1 had older lore that I had, and, V2 actually retconned some of the lore, especially in case for Billy's 2, because Billy's 2, was originally not gonna look the way as it was, because at one point, while I was working on V1, I was, gonna have the same style as V1 for Billy's 2, which I now dub as Billy's 1.5, or the Billy's 2 prototype, whatever. It's the same damn thing. Yeah, there was a lot of differences, especially for the old story back then, because I had to retcon a lot of things, especially to make things work, even for the time. But that's not... But I'm not discussing too much about Billy's 2 in this video. No, that'll be for next time. For everything else, like with the history of this game, like this was originally gonna have 3 versions. The one that was made in 2018, which was V1. V2 was made in 2019, now fully remastered. And then V3, which was originally gonna be done by 2020. I started working on it in mid-2019. But then, that's when I was making Five Nights at Billy's 3, the hospital one. That got done in August, and then eventually, things happened. Especially with me not having fun with the games anymore. Or at least like how they were treated, I guess you could say. Mind you, though, for anyone who was involved, I am not naming anybody. I'm not sending anybody to harass, because that's just full-on immature. I will say that it was a very long time ago. It was 4 years ago by the time of making this. And, originally, especially with the inclusion of 3, it was going to have a completely different story that was going to involve a satanic COVID virus sort of thing. It was bad. So that was rejected, and or at least ever since I rejected it, that's when I decided to cancel the 4th game, along with V3 and the Billies 2 remaster. Like all those games, yeah, they're done. But it did lead me into another path, which I could say is honestly a good thing, to fully reboot the series, like from the ground up, with a brand new story. But again, that'll be worked on after The Lost Ones, the end of Disney, like I already said from before. Alright, the game itself, like I said, it could have been better, but out of all the old games that I've made, this would be one of my most preferred ones, I could say. Especially as of right now, because the way I remastered it and touched up the graphics, I'm actually quite pleased of how I did it, especially compared to the original version back in 2019. Because I've improved a whole lot over the years, especially with the numerous projects that I helped out with, and also making, of course. Everybody except for the first main 3 were completely brand new characters that I came up with while making the game. Or at least it was a concept back in 2017, and then eventually that's when I started making it an actual thing in 2018. Yeah, most of them were copies of Fnatic characters, most notably Invert, Billy, and Scraps. But I did give them proper lore, so they want to be just standout, cliche-looking copies of Fnatic characters you could probably see on the Abandoned Discovery Island wiki, because that's not what I'm doing. Scraps is actually kind of an interesting one, because his lore is technically it's set to be a very old Billy drawing that I would draw, let's say, probably when I was 9 or something, or it was like somewhere when I was still in elementary school. And then eventually he comes to life and he's possessed and all that. Invert Billy is actually a corrupt eye that is also possessed, but he's also a virus, which is exactly why he becomes Glitch Billy in Five Nights at Billy's 2. Later on, I'll explain a little bit more of that, especially whenever I get to talk about Five Nights at Billy's 2 in the future. Everybody usually works the same way, except for the Dog of God, which for some reason I made him hostile in this game originally. He's not going to be hostile in the new one, though, I'll say that, because it just makes no sense. And again, I was 14 when I was making this, so you cannot blame me for shit. With Dog, you just gotta keep the monitor up until he's away, which is technically just a Cephalus mechanic. Again, Fnatic clone. The bacon sizzling sound, just came to me one day, just to be like, if I were to do a sound mechanic in this game, what would it be? And then I thought, wait, bacon sound, because Billy loves bacon, and the sound attracts them, especially Billy, because he's the main star, and he's the one that adores bacon. Like he loves bacon, because, well, he's a dog. Originally, this game also had too many Easter eggs, mostly when it came out in 2019. So that's why later on, when I was redoing this game, I cut the Easter eggs down because there was just too many. And looking back, it just kind of makes me cringe on how much I did. It's like overboard. And also, the inconsistent art style that I did with with things that had outlines and the others that do not have outlines. It just looks so weird. So, therefore, the only remaining outlines are on things that actually need outlines, like on the characters. Everything else is completely unneeded because I want to have a consistent art style in this version. Because for some reason I had an inconsistent art style back then, and it looked so awkward looking back at it. The main thing that actually made me into want to make games in the first place, especially when it came to the Billy series, was actually Malrat's games. Well, back then it was called Photo Negative Mickey. I'm pretty sure everyone should know by now. The biggest spark for me was mostly his Lost Ones games and Finest and Treasure Island 2017. It was like when it just came out, I was like, holy crap, this actually looks good. Despite the fog. I mean, I've usually been following his work for a long time, since 2016. And then, of course, I actually got inspired by him to actually make this a reality. It should be extremely obvious on one of the main reasons why we made projects like Mac Tonight Nostalgia Attack and the upcoming Lost Winds in Disney. Especially with those two games, I consider them as like a thank you for the inspiration over the years and the hard work he's been doing on his own projects and models. So I thought it would be kind of nice to do so, especially the end of Disney, or at least my end of Disney. I would usually, because that game is a complete passion project, because the end of Disney actually has a special place in me, personally, which is why I started remaking it back in 2020. I would add in a lot more mechanics in Billy's V2, but I'm gonna save the big stuff for the Demon's Plan, which is the reboot, for those who don't know. Because some of them are gonna be recycled ideas from the cancelled third version, and some others will be completely brand new because that's gonna be the definitive Billies. Like that's gonna be it, especially with my own creative control, because this is my game. With the main course, I would definitely make sure to give as much lore as I can with the characters, especially the possible newcomers whenever I get to that for the sequels. Because I will go ahead and say this right now. Not only will I be remaking Billy's 1, but I will be doing a brand new trilogy. Just for the new story. With the possibility of a few more games until I'm done with fan games. Because that's gonna be my goal. Because I'm gonna if I'm gonna finish fan games, then it's best that I finish this one first before I'm done. It's like with the series, like with my story. It's goofy as hell. It's kind of silly, but it holds a place in me. Especially when it came to like just where I just included myself as a character in the universe. Yes, I know it sounds cringy. Yes, I know it's like some Return to Freddy's crap, but I assure you that it's not going to be like that too often anymore. Or at least it's still going to be like that, especially for the reboot, but definitely not as much, because the new story is most likely going to focus on the characters themselves and the new characters that are going to be introduced that I don't think I've debuted yet.
Or heck, even having it being like in the face, or like a alter
version of myself, like how most people have done it before. It's like, no, I'm not doing that. It's just gonna be myself as myself. Just an ordinary person. That's it. And some of my other friends were characters as well in the original story. I'm not so sure if that'll be like the same way with the new story, but I guess I'll have to find out and see. But I'll still give them cameos like I did from before. That's for sure. With all of that aside, that's pretty much like the whole premise of like the whole game, or like the history of the first game, especially with my decisions and shit. Because like I said from before, the new one is going to be a lot more than what it was originally, because it'll be a complete reimagining. Well, the whole new trilogy is going to be a brand new reimagining in general, because I want to leave a good note before I retire from fan games. Well, that's pretty much all I have to say, especially for this developer commentary. I know a lot of this was silly, but I figured I'd give it out there just so y'all would know more about the game or something like that. And that's about it up until the next developer commentary, which will be either the 2018 version or even Billy's 2. So I'll see y'all then.